Well, we had identified a plan when I got the job into November of, that first signing date of really diving into the currently committed guys and get to know them and the fit, and wanted to get about half the class in December. And then I felt really confident in hiring a staff, getting 10 guys out on the road in January. We were going to be able to identify and really recruit some really good players, and it played out exactly like that. We're really just ecstatic and confident in the guys we signed here today to add to this class, and this coaching staff that I hired did a phenomenal job of identifying, recruiting in the homes, finding the right fit, and really beyond just the on-field coaches, the staff. There was off-field staff and the recruiting department on the weekends and the organization of it, and it was a great January for us. We're really fired up. Also in the second half of this recruiting class, being able to identify some needs. You're able to hire an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and look for some skill sets within that scheme, and we were able to find those guys. And so, overall, feel really, really good about the type of kids we're bringing on and their skill sets and their upbringings and their desire to be at Oregon State. I feel like they're a great fit. And like I said, it was a great day for the Beavs.
Questions?
Hey, Coach, congratulations on this group. You're a veteran recruiter, but this is the first time you've recruited as the head coach. How different was it? What was it like going into homes, knowing you were talking about your program?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. It's definitely different. You only get one crack at being the head coach in the home and things, but what was easy was able to sell the place because I've experienced it, and I was able to tell them I've been through those things. I've sit in those chairs. I've been in that locker room and experienced it as a student athlete. So I thought it was genuinely authentic when I was selling the message and the vision for what I see the place, and I experienced it. And so that was unique and easy for me to be able to talk about that. That's why, again, I go back to our staff did a great job. Those guys had multiple opportunities to be in the home and really solidified this class that way. But again, the message is, my vision for this place is through my experience, and because I've done it. I've been here as a player and then been in this league coaching and winning championships over the last 4 years at Washington, and that was a message in the home.
Jonathan, could you speak to some of the unique challenges of, both the early signing period, getting that done, then putting together a complete staff as far as how things will look differently this time versus next time as far as coverage areas and kind of being all hands on deck with that approach?
It was unique. I'm actually a fan of the early signing date. Just the circumstances coming into this first year made it really, really difficult in some regards. Again, I've said it before, I wasn't going to allow the early signing date to dictate all my decisions. I'd rather be late than wrong on recruiting, on the people we're bringing in here, the staff, and we stayed to that approach, and I feel great about how it played out. I think that these guys, again, that's who we surrounded ourselves with staff-wise, identified some really good kids, and the kids that came aboard on that are the exactly guys we're looking for, and so it played out really well for us.
Jonathan, you got 20 in your total class overall, and I think 12 of them are on the defensive side. Was that a particular focus for you guys in this first group?
It's both sides were focused for sure. We were going to be selective on who we were going to recruit, and we were. We went after a lot of good players, but the guys we finished with and wanted, we really pretty much got. And, on each side of the ball, the numbers are close to equal. Defense, we got to play some really good defense, and we're going to do that. Some of the perspective for the defense, we wanted to get a little bit longer, a little bit taller, a little bit more athletic, and you can see some of the players we signed kind of fit that bill. But I'm fired up on the offensive guys we landed as well.
Is there any freshmen that you can see that might make an impact right away?
Well, hopefully all of them, and we're going to give them that chance to do it. I'm not going to point out maybe one or two because, again, ultimately we don't know. I mean, these guys are going to come on campus. They're going to get an opportunity to compete right away, and we'll see how that plays out. But really, every freshman is going to have the opportunity to play and play early if they're ready to do it.
And could you give us a one or two word line about each of the guys that you signed just this period?
I sure can. I'll start with Ronnie Audette from Minnesota. Some of that perspective, Minnesota's not going to be a mainstay for us recruiting. We're going to go wherever the good players are at. But Coach Tibesar had a connection to start with, and Lange did an awesome job, those two guys gathering on him. I think he's pretty athletic. He's a good-sized kid. We identified him early when we were talking to Tibbs before we hired him. And so I talked to Ronnie in December, and then we were able to get over into his home. I think the guy has good size. He's physical, and he can move with the size he has. Jack Coletto, quarterback, I knew of him really well. You know, played at high school at Camas and won a state championship, was at a phenomenal senior year. And then he went down for the 1 year in Arizona. It was a priority for me is not to get too many guys that maybe only had 1 or 2 years left. And the opportunity for Jack to be here, go through spring practice, you know, he's got 3 years to play. He's won a bunch of games as a quarterback. We were excited that the skill set he has, you know, he can do a lot of different things, moving, running, throws it really well, sharp kid. I think so. I definitely feel confident he'll add to our quarterback room. Joshua Gray's old lineman, Rancho Cucamonga High School, athletic, good size, will continue to gain weight, and that's the ideal setup for me when you talk about offensive linemen, where you'd rather be putting on good weight than trying to take it off. And that kid is athletic and plays physical. Jamar Jefferson, the back from Narbonne High School, phenomenal senior season now. And he's playing some good competition down there in L.A. Had great home visit for him. That was a battle to the end, but he stuck with us. We feel awesome about his capabilities to play and play early. Brandon Kipper, kid we knew of out of Idaho, out of high school, you know, signed with Hawaii and then is joining us. We're fired up on his skill set. When you see him, he looks the part and actually has played some football at the Division I level already. John Mccartan out of Santa Margarita High School. Another kid could probably play on both sides, but defensively we'll probably start him on that side as that outside linebacker. Good range, height, be able to set the edge, can move around, and he catches the ball well offensively. Jeremy from LA Valley College, he was we needed an older defensive lineman we felt in this class, and we were able to land him. Awesome student, traveled a little bit, you know, been in Philadelphia, and you know, he came out on a visit, had a great time. I think his maturity will add to that room and his physicality. And then, where am I at? Okay, Jaden Robinson was actually a kid I had identified when we were at Washington. So he came to our summer camp this last summer, competed like all get out, and he can run. You know, he ran 10.7 as a junior. Feel great about his ability to be able to cover. And in this league, you got to be able to cover. I mean, these guys can run and run routes, and so Jaden fit that bill. Samisi, another taller, rangier, play outside linebacker. That was a great fit for us. He'll be going on his Mormon mission. And then Matthew Togo, again, a skill set to play outside linebacker from his frame and his athleticism, but I was totally into he plays a pretty good quarterback. He is not bad. And so the guy making decisions as a quarterback, I think that adds value to the defensive side for sure. You know, we had a couple other guys. Sean Elliott, defensive end, Lake Oswego. Steve Corey, good friend of mine. This guy can play and move around. He was here just this last weekend. Griffin Corkin from O'Day, another offensive lineman, good-sized body, great kid. And then Connor Warwick from Timberline out there in Washington as well, defensive end, good frame. We feel like those guys will be great additions as well.
Jonathan, as far as the map and, you know, recruiting areas, coverage areas, how does this class, given the hurdles of hiring, how does it compare to what you hope to kind of navigate in the future? And then could you address to the, in-state recruiting and, you know, how much of a priority that will be going forward and kind of what were maybe, you know, the challenges at this time? You know,
yeah, I do think the outline for the where we want to recruit is in the Pac-12 footprint. And so being on the West Coast is where we're starting, but really starting within this state. Again, I go back, I think there's good players in this state. I won a bunch of games as a player here with guys from the state of Oregon. So we want to start there and thoroughly look at those guys and try to get the top players in this state and then branch out slowly from there, get into the state of Washington, into Northern California. California is going to be heavy. It was reflected on this class as well. I mean, there's a bunch of kids there, and it just makes sense to me on the leaning toward the West Coast, Northwest to start, West Coast going for who we want to recruit. Now, we will go wherever good players are at, and you see it on this map. We've got some connections with this staff now that's, you know, outside of the West Coast, and so we're going to look and find players that way, but we'll definitely start in this state.
Coach, many players are pretty versatile. A player you signed in December, Bradley Bickler, but he played quarterback and tight end. You've got him listed as a defensive end, 6'7", 240. Can you talk about, how you decide where you want these guys to play, and then does that potentially change?
Well, you can decide off of their tape and where they fit on which side of the ball. It definitely could change as it goes along, depending on, too, how big he gets, how much weight he gains. His athleticism, he can do a lot of different things. I mean, he can do some things even at tight end probably from the get-go, but we feel he fits best to start on the outside linebacker position and go from there. I think big picture for the program, you do try to taller, more athletic kids that could play either side of the ball. You plug him in to start and you go. And if he's sticking there and doing great, well, you keep him there. If not, well, you find another spot. But I do think you can err by getting taller, more athletic. They can play on either side with the scheme we want to run. Defensively, offensively, they're pretty congruent.
Jonathan, Coach Riley was mentioning that there was a time here where 7 players were drafted, and the only offer they got when they were coming out of high school was from Oregon State. So that methodology of finding people that maybe not everybody else was after, was that at play a little bit in this class, and how important is that in this program?
To that, I think, some of those guys that go on to the NFL, for sure, as you finding them and their skill set, but also their maturity and their ability to improve is important as you're evaluating them. And then you need to develop them as they're here. And I think that what took place with a lot of those kids is they were developed over time. And so, again, I go back to this fit in regards to the type of kids we're looking for, good players that are good dudes that want to improve over a process of time. We get a bunch of guys like that over a 4 or 5 year period. Development takes place, and, yeah, hopefully we're getting a bunch of them playing in the NFL.
Did you view one position group in particular as the biggest area of need, particularly after the early signing period was complete?
I think probably outside linebacker with the scheme we want to run and the body types we were looking for, that was more of an emphasis for sure. I think, again, across the board, we wanted to fill a spot or two at each position, so I don't think there was one that was glaring more than the other, besides the thought of getting a little bit taller, a little bit more athletic to be able to play on the edge.
You said you're a fan of the early signing period. Having been through a cycle now with the first time, why are you? How do you think it's going to play out? How does it affect what you do on a year-round basis?
I guess I'm just a fan because I think a lot of these kids are making decisions earlier and giving them the opportunity to kind of lock that up and move on and having, whether it's a great senior year or focused in the winter. I just think these guys have decided earlier a lot of the time. And so I think from both ends, from the coaches recruiting them, if they're solid, they're going to be here. They know that. I think an earlier opportunity to decide that is good. With the circumstance we had, it was a little bit different with coaching changes. I don't know what the best exact signing date, the early date is. I don't know if that's best in December. I don't know if that's best in June. But I do think an earlier signing date for a lot of these kids that they're going to the place they know it. They're seeing the summer of their junior year.
Given you mentioned the need at outside linebacker to get Matthew Togo, given that he had generated some interest at quarterback from other places, how did you navigate that situation down the stretch and convince him to want to come here to play outside linebacker?
Yeah, I think we were upfront with Matt and told him we do think big picture wise he's going to be the best college player playing an outside linebacker position. He is a good quarterback. He was productive. He does a lot of good things there. But at the end of the day, I thought for the next step for his future, we sold him. We think he's an outside linebacker, and I didn't say it was 100% that he wouldn't dabble with a wild quarterback once in a while, something we'll use him that way. But I think for his skill set, he's gonna be a good college linebacker, and he thought the same thing.
Sorry, Jonathan. You mentioned Jaden Robinson. You were already aware of him. I read a great story about him just this morning. He's fairly new to football, but great athletic skill set. Tell us a little bit about what you see and maybe a projection type guy, development type guy with the skills he has.
Well, what impressed me the most when I saw him at camp was the way he competed. I mean, he's got a skill set and can run, and he plays corner, and he was taking a bunch of turns in one-on-ones and just competing over and over. See the frustration once in a while if he got beat. You know, so the kid was a competitive kid, which I was totally into. And he's got a skill set to be able to play corner. He's only played a couple of years of football, but, you know, at corner, it's not that hard. You got that guy, stay with that guy, and let's go. He's got a skill set to do it.